So tell me about Mr. Pumpkin. Tell me about him and his life and what's he up to and how did he come to be?
Yeah, so the simple pitch is just that Mr. Pumpkin is very shy, kind of socially awkward little pumpkin head guy, and he lives in this forest that's been charmed by a mage to be eternally autumn. And so it's just kind of this always cozy, always crunchy leaves, this sort of thing there. And the forest is basically a hub for magical creatures, and they're kind of drawn to the magic there. So they come and gather. So there's like the little ghosts, the little leaflets, and other characters I have kind of yet to reveal about in the forest. So yeah, there's a lot of lore to the forest and the characters there. But Mr. Pumpkin just makes friends with all the creatures that live there, and they have little tea parties. They go on adventures, and there's a ghost town, and he'll go there and work little part-time jobs with the ghosts, and it's just very fun. I love building all the little tidbits about the forest and things. So
hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Academy for Adventurers podcast. My name is Mauro Schiavo, and I'm your host, and today, as always, we're joined by a very special guest, Maria Fried, also known as Miss Chibi. How are you doing today, Maria Miss
awesome.
Chibi?
I am awesome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, I'm so thrilled. So I'm going to go ahead and read your bio here that you sent to me. So storytelling through art is a vital part of Miss Chibi artist's work. As a fully independent artist, Miss Chibi creates illustrations that harbor stories she loves to tell to her customers. Whether it's peaceful dragons, love it, sleeping on mountains, mermaids with dark secrets, or a socially awkward pumpkinhead, which I happen to know a little bit about, these stories connect with her audience across the world. With a combined following of nearly 30,000 on her Instagram accounts, at Life of Mr. Pumpkin and at Miss Chibi Artist, big projects are always underway. She is often found traveling to Comic-Cons around the US. Overall, fans of her work are attracted to the immersive convention booth, which I have a little bit to talk about, cozy atmosphere, and the heartfelt stories that connect them all. Man, what a great bio. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sending that.
Yeah,
So
you're welcome.
typically, one of the things we love to start is we love to talk about adventure. And I'd love to know a little bit about what does adventure mean to you?
Adventure is like kind of a word I've always really enjoyed. It's something like I grew up loving fantasy, adventure stories, and all that sort of thing. So it was something that I just always wanted to fuse into my life because I just love trying new things and going new places. So, yeah, just I grew up with loving all the fantasy books and all the adventure books, and was like kind of art I think came a lot from what I read as I was a kid and things like that. So yeah, it just means new experiences basically
New
for me.
experiences. What was an adventure story that was particularly impactful to your development as an artist?
Mm, I would definitely say growing up, I read over and over the Narnia books for sure by C.S. Lewis. Yes, loved Narnia, obsessed. I would like read them and like take notes on the characters. Like I wanted to create all like have all the lore in my head. I was like obsessed with all the lore, little tidbits I'd heard, and then also when I watched Lord of the Rings, obsessed with that, obsessed with the elves and all the
Yeah.
creatures in the world and like the deep stories. There's like a lot of substance there.
Yeah. Yeah. What What do you think? Because they always say that hindsight is 2020. Looking back, when you were a child, what resonated with you from those two stories? What do you think that was that gripped you, so to speak?
Yeah, I would say like just having a deep purpose in your life, like a lot of
Mm,
these characters did, and learning about themselves and growing through hard things and growing through going through these difficult situations. And that's always something I wanted to be able to do too, is not let the hard things in life stop me from going for what I wanted to do in life. And yeah, just the characters. I felt like a lot of the characters were very strong, very passionate about what they did
mm,
and about caring for each other, and that was just like super resonated with me and how I wanted to connect with people, which I'm more awkward person, and so doing it through art felt like a good outlet for me as opposed to speaking or writing.
I see. I see. There's something very powerful about art as expression. What what do you think that what do you think that is? Like why art for you, Miss Chibi? Like what is it about art that allowed you to express yourself and maybe assist in some of that awkwardness that you felt would somehow be ex- what somehow would come out if you were writing or having conversations? Like what was the thing in art that kind of allowed you to set that aside and focus on creating good work?
Yeah. So I one of the main things that started was I just had these scenes in my head that I just
Mm.
wanted to get out. Like I could see, like kind of I can always see like a finished illustration before I start, and I have a really clear vision of that. And that was always something I had growing up, and I just felt like I had to get it out of my head, sort of thing. And
Mm.
so I didn't mind like being more like not going to parties or not hanging out with my friends as much. I just if I could work on painting, and um, colors were very inspiring to me. Being able to just kind of do
Colors.
whatever I wanted through a painting, like there was no like the blank canvas was always like very exciting to me because I knew
Uh,
I could put anything on there. It never was scary to me like some artists it is. Because I just feel like that vision in my head was always super clear, and it just felt like I just always felt really peaceful when I was working and getting those things in my head out. So yeah, it just
mm,
helped me get
yeah.
through life. I feel like.
So why is vision important?
I think it's hard. Like if I don't have the clear vision, like if I'm like, oh, I want to draw this thing, but I don't see it in my head, it just takes me so
Mm.
much longer to get something done than if it comes to me earlier. So that's why, like, forcing myself to do something. This is why I don't take as many clients
Mm.
and things because doing my own thing is always a lot more productive than doing something for someone else. And having that vision is always just come from within me as opposed to from other people because I've always been very
Mm.
independent. So, yeah, and I think that's something that helped me shape my career the way it went too.
So when you referred to the idea of clients, what were those clients? Because it sounds like you don't have many of them now. Like what would a client have been for you?
Yeah. So, when I started out my art, you kind of feel like, oh, you have to make money, you have to get commissions, right? To
Mm.
when I started wanting to decide if I wanted to make art my career. So, one of
Hmm.
the ways is to get commissions. So I would open commissions on like my DeviantArt way back in the day, and I had
Um,
somebody do their like original character. I drew them for, and then later on, I did a couple book covers, illustrated a couple book covers. So, but just very small projects like indie authors and things like that. Um, and they were always it was fun to do those projects in some ways, but also I would rather be painting my own things in my own head than someone else's IPs. So I knew I wanted to move away from that at some point. It took a little bit to be able to develop my own independent art enough to be able to not rely on clients. So yeah, now actually I take no clients currently, and I haven't taken
wow.
clients for quite a long time. Other than my best friend. My best friend is a writer, and I'm gonna do her book covers, but that's a very special case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's always an entrepreneur's dream to chart their own path and be able to really get down to what we do best. And
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like you've had that for quite some time, because even when you had to, maybe for financial reasons, I understand as an entrepreneur myself the importance of making sure that you have a steady stream.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that oftentimes is necessary in the beginning is that steady stream. How were you able to move away from that? Because that's always very interesting to me when people tell me, you know what, I can just do what I want and not have to necessarily split myself into three or four different arenas just to make sure that I'm doing well financially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it was always a goal of mine to, get to
Mm.
do whatever I wanted, which is kind of a funny thing because in some ways I don't quite get to do whatever I want, even now that I'm independent in terms of my brand and my art style and things, but I can experiment on my own time. But moving towards that was just really building a personal like style and keeping it very consistent in terms of subject matter and just kind of the vibe and the colors. Um, so I have like my fantasy art, which is like dragons and mermaids and stuff like that, and that's a lot more of like blue, purple, green colors, a lot of nature and things. And then I have my character Mr. Pumpkin, who is like very fall. It's a
Very
cozy
fall.
forest that's eternally autumn, and that's where he lives. And so there's like all those other colors, and but creating it very like consistent style was a big boost to I think going independent, and then branding myself around that and going to conventions is obviously just a huge part of what I do and why I'm independent. If I wouldn't have conventions, I'm not sure what I would be doing to be independent. It would be look very different. But
Mm.
conventions are one of the main reasons I can work the way I am now, which I love that and I love traveling. And so going to conventions is like a super good fit. So yeah, that's the gist of it, but there's a lot of
Well,
details.
and thanks to that is that's the reason how that's how we met. We met at
Mm-hmm.
Dragon Con
Yeah.
in Atlanta, Georgia, and that was quite the experience. You had beautiful booth.
Yeah.
I met you on the last day of
Mm-hmm.
the convention, and it was quite a gift because I was not planning to go. There's a series of circumstances that led me to go there, and a lot of interesting fruit born from that, including this wonderful conversation that we're having now.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested in symbolism, and I'm very interested in the three figures that seem to be you've mentioned already a few times, so they're important to you. The three figures are the dragon, the mermaid, and the pumpkin. Why those three?
Mm. Well, I feel like the dragon and the mermaid, obviously set from all the fantasy books I read, obsessed with them.
Hmm.
Kind of in a way as I grew up and learned like what style of dragon and mermaids I like, kind of developed them into just kind of characters. And a lot of the dragons I draw are very like peaceful. They're not like the aggressive type, the which I think is very epic, but they're not really burning down towns or anything like that. They're like sleeping, they're like hanging out with the mermaids, and I just love creating this like idealistic world. Kind of like what I imagine like heaven to be like, like everybody just
Beautiful.
hangs out together, everyone's just, able to coexist that way. So I love creating very light and positive and uplifting like scenes through my art. And so, yeah, blending all that together. And then the pumpkin is kind of his own story, but he's just very um, wholesome. Like the whole brand, I want around that to just kind of give that peaceful, wholesome vibe. And so through that is like he doesn't actually have a mouth or anything. He doesn't talk. He just emotes and he just lives his little cozy life. And so just that like idealistic, peaceful life we all want to have, and just being able to
Yeah.
show that through my art is something that I really enjoy.
Beautiful. Something you said struck a chord with me in a good way. I I'm a practicing Catholic, so I'm very
Mm-hmm.
interested in the concept of heaven
Yeah.
and the afterlife. And what is your spiritual or religious background, if you have one?
Yeah. I'm a Christian. I'm always kind of grew up non-denominational, so um, my parents were and I was, and yeah, I go to church. So that's
Beautiful.
an interesting thing with the conventions often being on Sundays.
Yes.
I can't go, so it's one of those situations I have to work around it. But
Yeah.
yeah, so obviously also a deep love for like just imagining what the new earth and heaven is like, and being able
Yes.
to create that through art is super important to me, and it's something that's always like been deep in my soul, I feel like. And so just
Mm,
being able to try and share that with others through the art and illustrations is, yeah, it's important to
that's
me.
beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah, because there's that beautiful passage in scripture where we read that the lion and the lamb will be together in heaven, right? And I see that I see that in your work with the dragon and the mermaid, so to speak. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of side by side.
Just more
Dragon.
fantasy version, but
Yeah.
similar idea.
Yeah, well, the concept of the dragon is a very interesting one. I don't know if do you know some of the origins behind the concept of dragon?
I don't think I never really did a deep dive into that, so
Mm.
not necessarily. Mm.
So there's very interesting details about the dragon in particular. So there's an ancient work, and it came from Saint George and the Dragon, and a lot of Saint George, the stories and the folklore that surrounded St. George inspired a lot of the modern fantasy that we see now, including but not limited to King Arthur, the Knights of the Round Table, Narnia, and Lord of the Rings. Those are all works that are inspired by those folk tales of St. George and the Dragon.
Mm.
And in the Western tradition, which is the tradition that you and I were probably raised in, is the dragon is more of the guardian of treasure. It's more of a symbol of avarice and greed. But what's interesting is that in the East, it's kind of like the other side of the coin, where the dragon is seen as a positive figure that is a symbol of strength and power in a positive sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you see any of that reflecting in your work? Some of that, like East and West, or is it more one and not the other?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the Eastern dragons, like the way they depicted them and everything in their art. So that's generally more towards what I go with style wise. But yeah,
Mm.
definitely I didn't really think about it, but now that you say that, it makes sense where the Eastern dragons were more positively looked upon and they were generally more peacefully depicted than Western
Yeah,
dragons. So
yeah.
yeah, that's super interesting. I didn't know all of that.
Yeah, and the owl is another example too, which is really interesting because there are some cultures that the owl is actually a harbinger of negative things, whereas
Mm,
oftentimes in the West, you'll see owls depicted as harbingers or of wisdom, and they're actually like they're seen as these wise creatures, and we see that in many video games like like Legend of Zelda. You'll see like the owl. You'll look at, for example, child stories like Winnie the Pooh, and they're shown as
mm-hmm.
these like wise old figures that they just share all these things. So it's always
Yeah.
interesting for me to look at how different cultures will show the same animal. It's very interesting how the
Right,
cultural
right.
connections. Yeah, but I want to talk a little bit more about the pumpkin, and I have a little treat here for the
Ooh.
audience. So do you recognize this?
Yep. For sure. Yeah.
So tell me about Mr. Pumpkin. Tell me about him and his life, and what's he up to, and how did he come to be?
Yeah. So the simple pitch is just that Mr. Pumpkin is very shy, kind of socially awkward little pumpkin head guy, and he lives in this forest that's been charmed by a mage to be eternally autumn.
Mm,
And so it's just kind of this always cozy, always crunchy leaves sort of thing there. And it's the forest is basically a hub for magical creatures, and they're kind of drawn to the
mm,
magic there. So they come and gather. So there's like the little ghosts, the little leaflets, and other characters I have kind of yet to reveal about in the forest. But so yeah, there's a lot of lore to the forest and the characters there. But Mr. Pumpkin just makes friends with all the creatures that live there, and they have little tea parties. They go on adventures, and there's a ghost town, and he'll go there and work little part-time jobs with the ghosts, and it's just very fun. I love building all the little tidbits about the forest and things. So, but yeah, in terms of how he
mm,
came to be, how I developed him as a character in 2018, I did Inktober, which a lot of artists like to do, draw in ink for October, and I drew a little pumpkin head character, and it was just the eyes, not a jack o' lantern face, but just the eyes, and I really thought it was fun, and I
mm.
think I had posted it online, and I got a lot of people liked it. For back then, it was like, oh wow, this is like extra likes. I don't know, and so I was like, well, I'll keep drawing him. He was really fun, so I just kept drawing him. I think it was the whole month, and
Mm.
the next year I did the same and kind of kept recurring. And then I was like, I'm just gonna draw him all year. Why do I need to wait for fall? Sort of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, I came out of that little doodle basically in 2018. So it's been quite a few
Wow, a
years.
little doodle. And now he's one of your main, I would imagine, one of your main figures. if not the
Mm-hmm.
main one. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but is he kind of
Yeah.
like your star? Like he's like your main
I would
figure?
say, I would say so. Yeah, it's
Wow.
been an interesting shift because I definitely started out more with the fantasy, not so much Mr. Pumpkin's or fall related art. And now in the last couple years, honestly, last like 2 years, it's really flopped over to being Mr. Pumpkin is kind of my main draw at conventions, and to be honest, and so I've kind of switched over. He's gotten a bigger following on Instagram, that sort of thing as well, so it's kind of taken over my other account, which I
Ah,
had an account, Miss Chibi Artist, for my fantasy. I split it to be Mr. Pumpkin to have his own
wow.
Instagram with Life of Mr. Pumpkin. So he actually grew faster, and I think partly because he's so niched down, but yeah, so he's definitely more of I work on him all year for sure,
Wow.
and probably almost more than my fantasy at this point.
Wow. So he's definitely taken center stage, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah.
It reminds me the way that you described where Mr. Pumpkin lives in this enchanted forest that was enchanted by a mage, and it sounds like all the magical creatures coexist and they live in harmony. Reminds me a little bit of the Garden of Eden almost.
Yeah.
I kind of imagine the mage as being God, and Mr. Pumpkin is kind of like an Adam figure. Maybe
Yeah,
I'm
you could
reading too much into
definitely could
it
say
or
it
not.
that way. I never quite thought of that, but yes.
Yeah.
I think it
Well,
goes back to my love of the perfect world, like
yeah.
enjoying that and like wanting to just show that to people as much as I can.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, if he's hanging out with all the other creatures, that's what Adam did in a way, because Adam, he named all the animals. That was the first job that God gave him, and he kind of was like the caretaker, so to speak. There's a lot of reading into that, and there's a lot of interpretation as to how the Garden of Eden was. And I imagine that for the time that it lasted, it must have been very similar to that enchanted forest, because just everything
Yeah.
worked, you know?
Yep.
There was no problems at all. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's
Thank
so
you.
cool. So you've got a big following. 30,000 is definitely not a small number by any means. And so how is your relationship with your fans?
Mm. So yeah, what honestly, I love the convention scene
Mhm.
because I get to meet people in person and talk to them face to face and learn their names, or like, just kind of interact right there together and get to see them interact with my art as well. And that's just so cool, and that's not something you can get obviously through Instagram. And to be totally honest, I've never been a social media person. I It's kind of scares me and gives me anxiety, so I don't
Mhm.
get on there a ton, and I'm bringing in people to help me, check it and keep an eye on things so I can get answers to messages and such. But the more I can interact with people in person, the better, in my opinion. Like when I'm home, I'll just sit and draw, and then when I'm out there at the convention, I can put it all out and just get to see everybody and meet everybody and be super friendly, because it is super fun to meet people. So yeah, I think everybody's been so sweet, and like the Mr. Pumpkin fans are just so fun to interact with. To be honest, they're really cool, and they always like to ask, "Oh, what's new in the forest? What's he up to this year?" If I get to return to a different convention every year, so it's been fun.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when we stumbled across your booth, my wife and I were instantly enamored by Mr. Pumpkin. I mean, he was such a cute figure. And very much like you, my wife is a huge fan of autumn and fall. And so that struck a chord with her. And she was like, all right, if we're going to buy some artwork, this has definitely got to be a piece. And I said, let's go for it. And we have Mr. Pumpkin in our living room, and my wife decorated our home, and she decorated it with pumpkins and fall, and the living room table has a fall, what do you call that? A mantle, or a whatever you call it. Like the table has a mantle, and then there's pumpkins all over the place, and then Mr. Pumpkin is right there, hung, in the center of the living room. So
Perfect.
Mr. Pumpkin has definitely has found a place in our home.
I love to hear it. I love
Yeah,
to hear it.
yeah. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's such a cute figure, and then his love interest is also beautiful. His
Yeah.
love interest right there. Can you tell me a little
Yep.
bit about her?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is Rosie Boo, the ghost girl, and she is actually my my best friend's original character. So we my best friend's an artist too, and she draws Rosie Boo. That's her character. And a while back we decided, well, what if our characters were dating and they got to like hang out and interact, and we would draw pieces with them together, and it's been super fun. And yeah, so it's basically a collab and a crossover art of the characters together, and she draws them together, and I do as well. So you'll see them both at, like, she does conventions, so you'll see Mr. Pumpkin and Rosie Boo at her table, and I'll have Mr. Pumpkin and Rosie Boo at mine as well. It's been pretty fun.
Wow. Well, tell me a little bit about her. How did you two meet and how did your friendship form?
Yeah, so we met, trying to remember if it was 2017 or a little before that, actually through an artist live stream online, so on Discord I think it was. So yeah, so we just both followed the same artist, and he did like educational live streams on just to draw better, learning to draw better and things like that. And so while we were developing artists, we would drop in his streams. I think it was at least once a week. um, and so we kind of met on there, started chatting, found out we were both Christians and that as well. And then we got to meet in person for the first time in at a convention. I think it was in 2018. So I picked her up from the airport actually, and then we did Indiana Comic Con together, and that was super fun. And that just kind of went from there. So yeah.
Wow. That is super cool. Wow. So I always like to say that any good adventure is going to have difficulty and strife, and we like to refer to that as battles here because
Mhm.
me and my team, we're all fans of fantasy. Some of us play games, some of us don't. Some of us read fantasy, some of us don't. And that has always been important to me about how we can overcome challenges. I always like to say that Harry Potter would not have been nearly as good if there weren't battles with trolls, if there wasn't a Voldemort, if there wasn't a Draco Malfoy, if there wasn't a villain that, because they always say that a hero is only as good as their villain, right?
Mhm.
And so I think Harry Potter as a story would have been a lot less dull, or a lot more dull rather, if there weren't those moments of difficulty and strife. If it was just Harry, Ron, and Hermione just going through Hogwarts and they just had a regular time, I don't think people would have read that story. It wouldn't have been nearly as popular. In your personal and professional development, what challenges and battles have you faced, and how have you overcome them, if you don't mind sharing some of them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the first ones was just when I decided what to do about college and things like that, because
Mm,
my family was like, they weren't discouraging with art and by any means.
mm,
My parents were very encouraging, but they also were like, I don't know how you make money as an artist, like, are you
yeah,
going to be able to support yourself with that? And
yeah.
my both of them were in the medical field, so
Ah,
like very different,
mhm,
not as
yeah,
creatively brain. So it
yeah,
was one of those things where I was like, well, I don't know either, really. I'm still learning. So I decided to go to college for graphic design, which I felt was like a nice kind of segue towards art
yeah,
in the future, because I had to take a lot of art classes for it, which was nice, which I really enjoyed. And then computer classes, which I always liked technology anyway, so it was kind of a fun combo of art and technology. And so just learning graphic design, and on the side I just kept building up my art and practicing in my free time. So I took I watched a ton of YouTube
mm,
learning my art on the side too. And so it was a very like busy time, because especially after I graduated, I got a job for my design degree, and that was really busy. And then as I
mm,
would go to my job in the morning, I'd be like, oh, I wish I could just sit on the couch another hour and draw. Like it was rough to get up and go out to the office. And um, but I think it was a really good growing time
mm,
for me too as a person, because I was
mm,
so painfully shy when I was younger that I kind of needed to get out of my shell a little bit. So that was
mm,
good. Learning to interact with people professionally, learning about branding yourself. So a lot of skills I learned during that time, which was a little more stressful in my life, where I was trying to balance the job and my art. And um, growing both at the same time. And
Mm,
so that was interesting. And then I've also always had, like I said, the struggle with taking on commission work and working for other people's projects, and that's always been stressful every time I did it. So but learning to grow through those and force myself into doing things that are hard in terms of
mm,
work, and so just getting them done anyway. But
mm.
yeah, I'm so thankful that I am, full time with my art now, and I was able to leave my job, even though my job was great, and it was I like the people I worked with and everything. Was a bit sad to leave, but I knew in the back of my mind that, like, I was able to, after a while, I knew I was able to support myself with my art, and I didn't need both, and I would be able to really grow my business if I had the extra time even more to work on it and work towards make more art. So, but
Mm.
yeah, that was definitely it's one of those things where, like, I wish I could have just gone to art immediately, but that's not how life works. You got to get through other stuff to get to your goals. It's never like a straight line right there.
Don't we know it? Don't we know it? Wow. Did you ever doubt that you'd be able to make it?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I knew in terms of being, I suppose it was doubt to be a little bit of doubt to being full time
Mm,
without commission work and without any other income. It's like with clients and things. I was like, could I do it with none of that? So none of that other streams. Um, but I knew I would always be doing art, and I think I always knew my business would be growing, but I didn't know when or if I could go fully independent.
mm.
Um, so that was interesting, and
What
mentally too.
mentally? Well, tell me a little bit about that.
Mentally, with just getting the art in my head out, sometimes it was hard. Like, if I wouldn't get it, if one could be coming out right, I'd get super discouraged, and then it would be really hard to
Mm.
pick it back up or start a new piece. It's basically art block sort of thing. But
What's art block?
what is it?
Yeah, what's art block?
I think it's different for everybody,
Mm,
honestly. Um, but for me, I think some of it is honestly physical factors, like
mm,
extra tired. Like, I can't really draw very well at all if I'm tired. I know a lot of artists work at night. I can't really do that because
mm,
my brain just doesn't function. So I think taking care of your body, being
mm.
healthy, things like that, can really honestly help your brain, and that helps get the ideas out, get the ideas flowing, and I mean, and then there's also just times where you're just not feeling it. That's
Yeah,
natural, and but
yeah,
sometimes you have to work through that anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What does it mean to be healthy, and how do you do it?
Yeah, well, practically, I'm just learning as much as I can about nutrition. My mom got into it quite a few years ago, and she's been really helping me make changes towards basic things, just like way less sugar than I used to have, less, chemicals in my food, and less corn syrup, things like that. Just things that are just cleaning up my food, and to be get rid of some of that artificial in
Yeah.
there. So, like, I don't drink pop or soda or anything.
Oh, nice.
Um, so yeah, those are just simple things I think that help your whole body just feel better.
What have been the fruits of that?
I think, yeah, like a clearer mind, more
Mm,
energy. Like, I'll wake up not as tired anymore. I'll be able to get right to work in the morning and not like drag.
mm,
So it's
mm.
been good, I think. There's always times where that comes anyway, but
Yeah,
I think overall my energy's just a lot higher when I'm just careful with foods I eat and try to be balanced.
when you're eating well. Yeah, a couple years ago, when my wife and I got married, so I'm Italian descent on both sides of the family. Italian was my first language. I didn't learn English till I was 5 years old.
Mm,
And one of the things that we noticed when we took our honeymoon trip to Italy, so that way my wife could meet a lot of the family members that have lived there forever and they still live there now, was just the difference in food, man. I mean,
mm,
the food is
yeah.
just there. I mean, what always shocked me was how you could just have a whole pizza and you'd feel fine. Like,
Mm,
if I had a whole pizza here at a normal restaurant, or if I just ordered pizza from my local pizza joint, you don't feel good when you're done.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like, you enjoy it in the moment, but then you're bloated and this and that. But when we were in Italy, man, we ate everything. We had the cannolis, we had the pasta, we had the pizza. It was every day was a carb fest. Now, granted, we did do a lot of activity, which is not common here in the US.
Hmm.
We walked on average, I think we were walking at least, oh gosh, 7 to 10 kilometers a day,
Wow, yeah.
just touring. And you just naturally burn what you use. And I'm very big in fitness. I started my career as a personal trainer, so for me nutrition was always really important. And tying it back to the Lord, we're called to treat our bodies as temples, and that means that whatever you consume, I mean, it has to be good. Like you don't want anything to defile the temple, neither what comes in or what comes out, so to speak, right? And so I firmly believe that trip was eye-opening for me, because I always felt that organic food was a scam. I always thought that it was like just a way to make more money. But when we came back from the trip, I told my wife, I said, I think I want to switch to having at least 4 to 5 days a week of only organic foods. And we've been practicing that now for almost 3 years now. And it's been, oh my gosh, it's been so, 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 so helpful. I mean, it fixed my gut. It fixed a lot of stuff. It fixed my skin was better. I wasn't as bloated. Same thing like you, clear mind, better energy, and just cutting back a lot on the unnecessary, you know, very ultra processed foods, as they've been come to be called now. And that was a huge game changer for me, because I noticed that just with that alone, not even changing my workout routine or anything, not only did it make my workouts better and my results better overall, but just every day I just felt better. And then what's funny is that on the weekend, when I allow myself to splurge, I wake up Monday morning and I'm not as clear, I'm not as energetic, and like the first day is kind of like a get into it day. So we started saying, you know what? Then we have to probably just keep it to Friday, Saturday, and have Sunday be a clean day too. That way, when we start the week, we start off fresh. Because very much like you, Sundays for us are a non-negotiable. We always make sure we go to mass. We always make sure we pray. We always make sure that we give time to the Lord, because we want to make sure that we're making sure that we're honoring God first and foremost, but that we're also taking care of ourselves, practically speaking.
Yeah, yeah, so relatable. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think health is super underrated. Like people don't talk about it enough, and just yeah, with the food and everything. So there's so
Well,
much to learn. It's kind of cool.
yeah. Well, because when you go to the conventions and whatnot, I mean, a lot of the food there is junk. I mean, let's call it for what it is. I mean, it tastes good. You're having a good time, but and during the day maybe you don't notice it, but later on at night, you're not sleeping as well. You're not as energetic, and so it's. I think also too with the gaming culture, that energy drink culture, the sugary foods and all that stuff. Like it really, I think it plays a toll. It takes a toll on our bodies. And what's funny is that being such a fan of fantasy and gaming, MMOs, you name it, reading fantasy books. I met a great guy called Tommy Kerper also there, which he was the first guest here on the podcast at the Dragon Con. And a lot of the characters in books in general, like typically they take care of themselves, like they're fit, they're energetic, they're fighting monsters, and they're taking care of themselves, because they wouldn't be able to do that stuff if they didn't, right? I mean, maybe some fantasy characters, like they'll show Naruto or Goku and they're always eating ramen, or they're always eating like a ton of food. But granted, first of all, they're fantasy characters, and second of all, they're fighting all the time, so they're definitely using that energy. Have you ever played Monster Hunter, or do you know of it?
I It sounds familiar. I haven't played it myself, but yeah.
Yeah. So I just mention it because it's always funny, because maybe people in the audience who know Monster Hunter, they know that before you go on a quest, your hunter will always have an option to eat this like huge meal, and the meal gives you stat buffs for the fight itself. And so you just see this guy like rah, 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 just like chowing down on like this big turkey leg and all this stuff, and it's just really funny. But actually, that probably wouldn't be good for you if you ate all that food before you went to fight something.
Maybe not quite that much.
Maybe not quite that much.
That's
Yeah.
always the joke with like games like Zelda and stuff when Link's just like putting all this food in to like
Yeah.
get all the different stats.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, have you played like Breath of the Wild and whatnot?
Yeah, I love Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom a
Tears
lot.
of the Kingdom.
They're so
Wonderful.
good.
Have any of those games impacted you as an artist or kind of shown up in your work?
I would say I got into the Zelda games a little bit later in life. The ones that I would say impacted me more were Final Fantasy,
Which ones?
and Kingdom Hearts. 7, yeah.
7. I'm playing Rebirth right now on the
Oh
PS5.
yeah, I did play that. That was good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no
But
spoilers, please, because I'm still in the
okay.
beginning. Thank you. So Final Fantasy 7, and you mentioned Kingdom Hearts. I have the entire. I think it's called an anthology now. I don't know what they refer to it now, but I have all. I mean, I've got it on
Oh,
the
that's awesome.
PS5. Kingdom Hearts, just as a when Kingdom Hearts came out in 2002, I was 9 years old, but I didn't get hold of Kingdom Hearts until I was about 12. You know, and Kingdom Hearts 2 was going to come out very soon. So I just
Mhm.
remember being like 10 or 11 years old playing Kingdom Hearts and then just waiting for Kingdom Hearts 2. It felt like an eternity, but it wasn't that long. And then Kingdom Hearts 3, don't even get me started on that. I mean, that was like a 15-year wait. I mean, I stopped
Yeah.
counting, but yeah.
Yeah.
What impacted you from that series?
Oh, I actually didn't get to play them myself, unfortunately, growing up, but would like watch them on YouTube because I didn't actually have a lot of access to gaming consoles and things when I was younger. So a lot of it was just online or my siblings. So
Mm.
I just was immediately enamored by the art style because I liked that, like, I always liked manga and anime, but I liked the semi-realism that you kind of get more with the Final Fantasy, especially the newer ones and Kingdom Hearts and stuff. I liked the art style so much, and the character designs were kind of like, crazy. Like the detail is insane in a lot of Final Fantasy stuff, but I just thought it was so interesting, and there's like always something cool to look at with those. So yeah, definitely like drew little doodles of Sora and all the time and stuff, and would like love drawing fan art for that. So I think it's important to have those inspirations to like, if you're stuck on your own ideas, be able to kick in some fan art and draw your favorite character. It can kind of pull me out of art blocks sometimes, so I use fan art for that a lot.
So
Yeah.
why do you think that is?
The fan art, I think,
Yeah, like
is
why does
easier.
that stop the art block?
I think because for me personally, I don't know if it's the same for everybody, every artist, but my own ideas just take a little more brain power. I feel like to process because especially since I enjoy painting more, like I have the vision I had, but I don't like fully like detailing a sketch or doing line art or anything like that. So I do make a lot of decisions as I paint. So I think when I do original art, it's a little more brain intensive for me than when I have fan art. I can just look at a character. I know exactly, what they're going to look like, and so you just kind of copy it, but you just can be your own pose, your own composition, things like that. But it always felt a little more like low key, I don't know, to me to do a fan art piece than an original art piece.
So it was kind of like, well, the way that I'm receiving your words is I'm thinking of kind of like it's like a massage for the brain, so to speak. Like get those creative juices flowing, kind of allow the brain to take a little bit of a rest and kind of just enjoy something that is already pre-made, and you can just kind of just
Mm-hmm.
enjoy that ease. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
received what you said. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually it's just like a sketching session. I'll just get a bunch of little doodles out or whatever. And if it's a character I know really well, then it's like you kind of have those preset. Oh, this is their personality. You know what their personality's like. Like poses and different things they would do naturally. So it just is a little, yeah, it's simple and fun. And I often will use that to get out of an art block.
Hmm. How many hours a day do you work when it comes to painting and sketching and all of that?
It's less now than it used to be, and
Hmm.
almost less now than when I wasn't full time with my art, which is always so weird to. But you know. So I
Mm.
usually do at least an hour a day of art. I um, often actually work a lot better in the morning than the evening in general. There's occasional times where I'll be inspired by, like, if I was playing a game or watching a movie and I get really inspired, then I'll
Yeah.
go back and do art before I go to sleep. But
Mm.
generally, it's like between like 9 and noon.
9
Um,
and
I,
noon.
so
Okay.
that's like a 4 hour, or is it nine? That's 3 hour window. But
3 hour window.
sometimes I'll do that, use that whole 3 hours. Sometimes I'll use like an hour of that. Um, it's generally more like an hour or two, I'd say, a day. Um, but I would like to change that so there's more time to do art for
Yeah.
sure. So
Yeah.
part of that process is just getting more people to help me with the admin side of my business,
Yeah.
and all the, like, conventions are a lot of prep before
Yes.
and after a show. So there's usually a lot of, like, there's like a week before a show and a week after where there's a lot I have to deal with related to the show. So it kind of cuts down on the amount of time I can spend doing art. But yeah, a lot of logistics.
Wow. Yeah. If I was transitioning more to the growth pillar now, we kind of been talking a little bit about it just naturally of how you've developed as an artist and kind of your
Mm,
background. So I've got a fun question for you. If I wanted to become a professional artist, what advice would you give to me? How should I get started? What would I do? And what has been I always do these three question things. I'll try to slow down a bit. But if I was a new artist and I wanted to become a professional one where I can rely on my art being the sole source of income, what skills have you developed and grown in that have been pivotal for you? And what of those skills would be the most important that I needed
mm,
today, right now?
mm. Yeah, so okay. Skills, I would say, in order to start from zero, like
Mm,
you're not currently doing much. I would hope that whoever wants to be an artist has enjoyed drawing as a kid. Like that's
yeah.
usually always how it is. Everyone's
Mm,
like, "Oh yeah, I drew as like a ton growing up." But I suppose you could get into it without that. But most people have always liked drawing, and then they go into art as their career. I would say initially it'd be good to figure out how you learn best. Like, do you think you need a traditional education, or do you think you can learn on your own? Because there's so many resources online and through private mentorships and everything nowadays with artists, professional artists. So I didn't learn through like a college, and I really enjoyed the way I learned. And I don't think traditional education is very necessary for art anymore, but for
mhm.
some people, maybe that's the only way to learn because you struggle with like self discipline
The
or,
structure.
forcing yourself to learn on your own with structure and things. I never really had too much of a problem with that. So I was able to create, like, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to do an hour of, pose drawings and sketches like that. But yeah, so initially I would say, yes, number one is just like to learn, to discover how you learn best. And then create times to study on your own and learn what you want, where you want to go with your career. See, I wanted to do like character illustration. And I knew illustration was probably where I was going to go. If you're going to be more of like comics or things like that, you might want to study um, backgrounds and poses and
Mm,
things where, like, niche down with how you study and not just take everything all at once. So yeah, so and then I took some private mentorships, which I think was honestly the biggest growing time I had. And so I took one from Von Art Online. He does lots of conventions too, but Tim Von Ruden, and I took a private mentorship from him. Well, there was like a group of like maybe 7 of us, but he did personal feedback. So like once a week, we did an assignment. He gave us feedback and reviewed and actually drew over our pieces to show us. And that was one of the most helpful things to me. Is I learned very visually, so seeing somebody correct my work in real time with real thoughts right there and then um, was so helpful and was a great way for me to learn. So that was my biggest, I would say, growth spurt was from the mentorship. And then obviously YouTube tutorials and
yeah.
different artists that do instructional content. So yeah, I would say that, and building a brand and an art style that's consistent, if that's what you want to do. If you want to be a jack of all trades and go into like, concept art, sometimes you need to have a little more varied skills. But if you want to be an illustrator for fantasy, you can kind of niche down and go towards studying things that relate to the art you want to do. So I guess that's my biggest advice.
That's very helpful, I imagine, for people in the audience that are considering that as a vocation, because I work a lot as a life and career coach, and one of the things that I'm very big on is helping people find that direction, particularly in the beginning, because nowadays, oftentimes we're told that you can do anything, which is true, but you can't do everything, so to speak. And so I know that even with a concept, we use the concept of jack of all trades, but there is something to be said about having a couple niches, because what I've noticed is that having a direction is super important, because you have potential, particularly if you're naturally drawn to creative pursuits. You probably have a lot of raw potential, but that potential needs to be shaped in some way or form and actually become something. So I've become a big fan of niching down. Ideally, at least from my perspective, I find it's helpful to do that as early as you can, because at least that will give you a track to follow, and that will kind of eliminate a lot of the auxiliary anxiety that comes with it and the pressure of having to develop yourself as an artist, I would imagine.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, that's where I almost wish I would have like found my vision sooner. Like honestly,
Mm.
the sooner the better, like so you can just really focus in on that thing, cuz I think being super skilled in an area is just more helpful than ever these days with jobs and with careers, like
Yeah,
just really knowing something super well. Um so yeah, I agree.
yeah, yeah. So moving on now to the final pillar, which is beauty. And I always love to talk about things that are true, good, and beautiful. And I have always found that good art can communicate those three virtues, so to speak, the true, the good, and the beautiful. What do you think about those three concepts? Like, what does it mean for something to be true? What does it mean for something to be good? And what does it mean for something to be beautiful?
Yeah. Well, I mean, all those things are kind of going to tie back to my faith and my
Mm,
belief that, God made everything and he made it beautiful and things. So, yeah, nature's always like really inspired me.
yeah.
I love seeing just creation, and like the mountains are huge inspiration to me. So, I just think, yeah, I just want to create art that resonates and shows those things in their best light, essentially. Um, and I don't want to, yeah, I just wanted to come across very authentic, basically, to people
Mm,
through my art. And it's interesting because I didn't really like try to embed those things necessarily into my work. I think they just kind of automatically did and naturally did. Because people will just come up to my booth and be like, "Oh, I feel so peaceful being around
mm,
the art," and I
mm.
didn't like consciously like try to shove that in there, but like it's just kind of comes out of the pieces and comes out of me. So I guess so.
Yeah.
But yeah, 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 just
How
being
has
true to what you believe and
okay.
showing that through your piece.
How has God helped you with your art? How has he been present in your work, if at all? Or how has he been present in you, so that way you can also express that in your art?
Yeah, I've just always felt it was my calling to be positive, I suppose, and
Mm,
like create a positive place in the like space in the world and expression in the world, because it's just so dark and there's a lot of dark things, so a lot of dark art and things like that, at conventions such like that
yeah.
I wanted to create a space, and I always felt that was part of like just part of me. And I try to stay out of politics and all sorts of things like that, just because it impacts how I create, and it's like I'm not as productive. But if I'm in a positive mindset and like been doing my devotions daily and things like that, I feel like I'm always a lot more productive and creative, and my ideas flow better when I am in that headspace. So yeah, that just really helps my creative process, I'd say.
It's difficult, I believe, to be creative if you're not in a good mood. I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some people, I suppose, say
And channel that,
strong
right?
emotions
Yeah,
strong
you
emotions
can
can
channel
help. I
that.
don't For
Yeah.
me personally, I don't think that's true. Like when I'm having a really bad day or something's hard with my family's been happening,
Mm,
I really don't want to create. That's just me. I think everybody's a little different, but I
yeah.
really don't. I just want to like get on a video game or watch a show or something. So
Yeah.
for me, my art generally comes out of more positive emotions
Yeah.
or inspired emotions. Like I watched a really good show or something, and even if it's not like a necessarily positive like episode or whatnot, it's still like it's inspiring to me, so then I can create. So but if I'm personally struggling with life events or whatnot, it is a lot harder for me. So I
That,
think everyone's a little bit different, but yeah, that's how it is for me.
yeah. Yeah, that is also how I am. It's difficult for me sometimes to coach people or to even record a good podcast if I'm not relaxed, because I cannot be fully present. I can't pay attention as well to your body language. I have been able to also channel dark emotions sometimes, but it's not easy because typically I am a very positive person and I don't do well if I'm in that space. Oftentimes what I'll have to do is I'll have to do something physical. Like I'll have to go for a
Yeah.
workout, I'll have to go take a class in martial arts, I'll have to go do something that will channel that energy into something that I can do physically and kind of get it out. That's just how I've been
Mm.
able to channel it. And I also, I heard something very interesting, and this was from I believe it was from a comedian. He was a faith-based comedian. And I'm not sure what denomination, but I remember him saying something along the lines of, yeah, if you think that listening to dark music or listening to or watching content that is dark doesn't impact you, he would say that it's probably not true. It probably does impact you in some way, shape, or form. And I do think that some people, due to their personality or due to their disposition, can deal with that more. And I think that there's a place for that too, because I mean, obviously the human emotion spectrum, it also has dark emotions. And a lot of the saints, they always had, a lot of the saints had something called the dark night of the soul, where it's like they're just in anguish and they're like, the Lord, why am I going through this? Like, why do I have this illness? Why am I being spiritually attacked? Why don't I have any peace? But then the Lord would often respond to them and say, remember the cross. Remember that I was nailed to the cross. And if you offer up those difficult situations, if you offer up those difficult circumstances and you lay them at the foot of the cross and say, Christ, I offer this up to you. Like, I find that is a way to not only glorify God, but also to give you peace in those difficult moments as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 And well, an example that hurts me is Linkin Park, because I loved Linkin Park growing up. But man, if you listen to the lyrics of that music, I don't know if you're familiar with Linkin Park or not,
Mm.
but he committed suicide. I mean, and it's like,
Mm.
man, it's like you read his lyrics and you're like, of course, like he was very troubled, and it breaks my heart. And I can only imagine what he was going through. He was able to channel it, but unfortunately, for some reason or other, we may never know the full story. But unfortunately, in the end, it didn't seem to go well. So I do think that it's important to somehow find ways to glorify or sanctify your sufferings in some way, shape, or form. And I think as an artist, probably that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I I think art's helped me get through lots of things in life, but it's and even when I'm feeling like harder emotions and things like that, to draw something positive or like
Mm.
paint something with brighter colors sometimes helps in its own way too.
Interesting.
And just kind of playing around and just experimenting. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So exposing yourself to positive colors is helpful. Okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Yeah, because they always say that the eyes are the windows to the soul, right? And so whatever you see is going to come into your soul, and kind of a reflection of it, and then you can use that to create. Wow.
Mhm.
Well, this has been fantastic. I wish we could talk more, and this was fantastic. So, how can people get in touch with you? How can people find you and all that?
Yeah, so I would say kind of the hub would be my website, and
Mm.
that is misschibiartist.com. You can kind of find things about Mr. Pumpkin there. You can find which conventions I'll be at on my info page, and I have a newsletter on there. So it's kind of a good hub to go to if you want to find all that. And then, of course, I have Instagram for my fantasy is at Miss Chibi Artist, and then I have Mr. Pumpkin's account is at Life of Mr. Pumpkin.
Nice.
So any of that stuff, but yeah, you can find all that and follow along if you'd like.
That's wonderful. Well, for those of you watching, please consider supporting Miss Chibi's work. She's done great work, and we'll have all of her social media accounts, her website, and that way you can take a look at her art and support her, because we need good art. Art is underrated oftentimes, but I do feel that culturally in society there seems to be some sort of a shift back to the appreciation of good art. Personally, I don't know your perspective on this, but I found that for a while modern art was lacking in many regards. I just didn't find it beautiful. I mean, that whole joke of the in Miami. I live in South Florida, and in Miami, there was that famous story of this guy just putting a banana peel on the wall, and he sold it for like $2 million. And I thought that was funny, but very twisted in a way. So we need good artists like Miss Chibi. So support her work, get in touch with her, and consider buying some of her work, honestly, because I love our piece. As you heard, it's in the living room, so it definitely matters to us. Maria, it was so great having you on, and thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your contribution, and I hope I can have you back in the future.
Thank you so much. It was super fun chatting today.
Yeah, what a blessing. All right, everyone. If you haven't done so already, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. That way we can continue delivering wonderful content to you and bringing wonderful people such as Miss Chibi here. So until next time, keep adventuring, and remember, every step of your life is an adventure, and you are the hero of your own story. May God bless you, and we'll see you next time. Take care.